Let's move on right now. We have a very powerful presentation by key industry expert. Well, as AI, you all know redefining industries, ecosystems, and reshaping business model and how we approach customers. In fact, customer expectations are also evolving faster than ever. Well, in such a landscape, the real question is not about innovation. It is about how to stay relevant. Well, as technology accelerates and digital ecosystems are redefining the rules of customer engagement, insurers are facing a major challenge to remain and stay relevant in this rapidly transforming world. To put more light on this, we have to hear it from the expert itself. Ladies and gentlemen, the next presentation will be by Mr. Krishnanand Menon, Insurance Business Leader, India, NTT India Private Limited. Can we have a huge round of applause and welcome him on stage? Thank you so much. Thank you so much for the very powerful panel that we set the context of today. Thank you once again for joining in. Over to you.
Right. So the reason I kind of overshot my time by 10 minutes or so because the next slot was mine. So I hope I get to spend lesser time on stage. But nonetheless, it's a very warm and a very hearty Mumbai good morning to all of you. And thank you for turning out here in complete attendance. It's also a very warm and a very exciting time globally, right? A lot of volatility on the global sector, geopolitics. And the way I would see it, it's an excellent time. It's a great time to be in the prediction business. It's a great time to be in the insurance business, and it's a fabulous time if you're in both. And that kind of sets the tone for what I'm going to be speaking today, competing for relevance, age or circa 2030. And why 2030? Because from NTT DATA, we have an InsurTech report. Did you all miss what I said, or should I go to it again? Right, I hope it's okay. So we have an InsurTech report that's published, every 5 years in terms of holding forth on what our point of view for insurance is for the succeeding 5 years, right? And this report that came out in 2025, on the turn of 2025, kind of summarizes or looks at what are going to be the changing dynamics for insurance and insurers in 2030. And that's going to be the content for my presentation today. But before I start, let me get a few imperatives out of the way. Massive thanks to Cinex and the team from Cinex for giving us the opportunity to be the presenting sponsor. I've been associated with Cinex for the last decade or so, and every time Soumya and his crew do a fabulous job in raising the bar. This time also, they're no exception. Intensely humbling experience for me to be standing here and speaking to all of you in an audience that's comprised of industry leaders, my mentors, my ex-colleagues, people from whom I've literally learned the brass tacks of the industry, very complex industry, right? So to be standing here and addressing a point of view from NTT DATA to this audience is really a very humbling experience, and thanks to all of you, right? And also a moment of great privilege for me to be representing NTT DATA in terms of like what I mentioned, the point of view for Insurance 2030. And to set a perspective, which is not there on this slide, I think today insurance as a practice is a $2.4 billion business for NTT. We are present in about 150 countries. We employ 12,000 employees purely from an insurance domain standpoint, right? And as an organization, while the larger part of the world knows us as a network and a data center company, I think it's my responsibility and my team's responsibility over here to dispel that myth and say that we are truly an insurance applications company as well. And again, I think we would use this forum to kind of resonate this message with you that we are in here for the long haul in India as well, right? So, without much ado, so the way we see it, insurance is poised on the anvil of a radical transformation, right? And what is it that we're speaking about? We're speaking about an industry that's been traditionally a financial safety net, right? Traditional industry designed for reactive compensation, right? And that's going to shift very radically, right? Insurers are increasingly going to be competing not for market share, but for relevance in people's lives. So I think the esteemed panel that I was moderating a few minutes ago, we heard words like hyper-personalization. We heard words like, customer expectation, right? We heard words like customer wanting the insurer to be a lifestyle choice, for the lack of a better word, right? Vis-a-vis something that kind of helps him just from a catastrophe, right? And that's precisely where the industry is headed, right? So customers are going to be evaluating the choice of insurers, right? Not just on their ability to settle risks faster, but hey, how is the insurer going to be my digital co-pilot? Am I living my life safely? Am I driving my vehicle safely? Am I living my life healthily, right? And for starts, I would appreciate a partner like that. The times we live in are so turbulent, right? I would really like somebody going beyond my family to be who understands me so well, to warn me of risks, right? And that's going to be the changing face of insurance as we step forward. So this next 15 or 20 minutes, I hope I have the time, right? I'm going to be looking at what are the tech forces driving this kind of a perception? What can insurers do to kind of harness the power of, for the lack of a better word, AI and insurtechs to kind of play up to this role of being a digital co-pilot as opposed to being a financial airbag, right? So from a matter of perspective, we saw two significant waves, and now we're sitting at the apex point of a tsunami, a tech tsunami, as I would call it. Wave one was where we saw the industry investing heavily in terms of, risk pools, as I call it, right? Actuarial science, distribution systems, all of that, right? Wave two saw the onset of digitization, right? Where insurers started investing in terms of online models, right? Automation, the key metric being how do I achieve uptick on my operational efficiency. But the so-called tsunami, again, for the lack of a better word, the so-called wave of disruption we're seeing now is brought about by culmination of AI, cloud infrastructure, I would say advanced data ecosystems. And why data ecosystems? Because it's a connected world we're living in, humongous amounts of data being thrown about. And last but not the least, quantum computing. Yeah, quantum computing. I think there's super work being done world over in terms of quantum and how it's going to be influencing decision cycles world over. So if you look at these four levers, I think insurers cannot hope for a better time to be at riding this wave. And harnessing these four levers gives insurers the chance to play or morph from being a reactive compensator to being a predictive, protective, protector of people, I would say, right? They would be able to predict risks better, provide protection at scale, and actively kind of influence customers to a healthier lifestyle, to healthier habits, right? So having said all this, what does customer 2030 look like? Now that's very interesting. Now we spoke about what the industry is going to look like, but what's customer 2030 going to look like, right? So again, 2030, the customer, and we're going towards that, is going to be a very, very intensely digitally aware customer. Now with all that awareness comes a sense of paranoia, right? Is my data safe, right? Am I being approached in a trust secure manner, right? The customer is going to expect a lot of hyper-personalization. Now, we know that embedded insurance is here to stay. We know that today when I buy an Ola ride or when I buy an air ticket, I get an insurance automatically. But that's going to see an uptick. That's going to actually occupy more than 97% of people's lives, right? And with all that hyper-personalization, right, the demand for real-time services becomes more, right? Today, my attention span is not more than 10 minutes, sorry, by my own admission, before my finger goes off to a mobile or to a Netflix OTT. But the point is, we're speaking about lowered attention spans, right? People don't have the patience really to listen to reams of explanation. They want just stuff quick. And the Gen Z generation, right, I think, most of you who are here, right, would expect absolutely real-time service, right? So to top it up, what does this mean from an insurer standpoint? We're talking about a whole amount of skills that are needed to serve this kind of a changing customer landscape, right? You're talking about investing in AI skills. And that's going to come from this new generation of people or youngsters who absolutely love coding, coding on the fly, vibe coding, call it what you may, right? But then this generation is also going to bring in aspects like flexible work, autonomy at work, so on and so forth. So as insurers, right, there's a whole amount of changing dynamic in terms of managing workplace expectations that they need to look at, right? But again, we spoke about the customer, we spoke about the changing workplace dynamics, but there's a lot of opportunity, right? Today, I think people world over are paranoid. I'm paranoid today. I mean, the war's breaking out every 2 weeks, probably. I don't know what's going to happen to my aircraft when I step on. I'm living in a state of paranoia as a citizen, right? So wouldn't I value an insurer who kind of simplifies risk for me, who kind of understands or predicts, say, climate volatility for the matter, predicts that when I do a crypto trade, right, what's going to be my risk attached to it? I would love to have such a partner in my life. I mean, ideally if it existed, right? But then that's what's the insurers going to play, the role that they're going to play going forward, right? And we got the tools like I mentioned before, right? We got tools like quantum, we got tools like advanced AI doing that for you. So the third dimension is basically going to be emerging segments. So we're going to see, as insurers, a lot of emerging segments like climate, cyber, to name a few, that's going to end up opening up new markets for, for insurers. So what this means, what this means is that from an insurer standpoint, right, you need to provide a completely frictionless omni-channel interface to clients as an expectation, right? You're also going to need to work with a changing dynamics of workforce and workforce expectations. And you're also going to need to work with a lot of emerging new risk segments. But then, you can't do this alone. Insurers can't do this alone. Insurers need to have an ecosystem of partnerships, right? Like we're seeing a lot of companies getting formed in the AI space. We're seeing a lot of good work being done by absolutely disruptive, volatile startups, right? I think that ecosystem is bound to grow, right? And that ecosystem is bound to throw up models which a traditional company, a traditional business model like insurance can only afford to leverage and go higher up the curve. So 3 axes of improvement: the customer, look within ourselves and look at the whole changing model of workplaces. And the third is this whole insurance and ecosystem partnership. So in a nutshell, I think insurers should be compelled to be more data-driven, more adaptive, and leverage, and more ecosystem-based, which actually leads me to the next slide, which is where I think NTT's point of view for insurtech and insurance comes in. So, like I mentioned, for long, we've been putting out our point of view for insurance titled as the Global Insurtech Report, right? Now, for 2025 and going up to 2030, our view is that the market for insurance is going to be primarily centric around we call it the liquid ecosystem model, right? And 4 ecosystems. Now, what are they, right? So ecosystem 1 is what we call as smarter mobility, right? Ecosystem 2 is health and well-being. Let's just call it smarter health, right? Ecosystem 3 is going to be home safe home, right? And ecosystem 4 is going to be business shield. Now, what are they in a nutshell, right? Smarter driving, we see that insurers can morph themselves into incentivizing people to safer driving habits, right? We spoke about user-based insurance, we spoke about embedded insurance, so on and so forth. So how does the insurer, kind of change from being just a claim settlement for an accident to kind of influencing a person to drive safely? Now, for example, my cousin lives in Palo Alto. He drives a red Ferrari. He dates a volleyball player. Obviously, he pays higher premium, right? But that's the level of understanding that insurers today have. Of course, I think all guardrails being there, right? So that's one. The second is healthy living. Now, a lot of diseases, right? A lot of ailments, a lot of physical challenges have hitherto been exclusions in the industry where people are really challenged, saying that, look, I'm having this kind of a problem with myself. Now, why should I be penalized in terms of protecting myself with a higher premium? So can the insurance company play the role of a coach, right? Can the company really say that, look, I can bring about this uh, vast connected ecosystem of sensors, healthcare providers, right, facilitators for you as a consumer to kind of help you understand your own system better, be it emotional, mental, physical, whatever, right? And that's what we call as smarter health. The third one is what we call as home safe home. Now, this also leads me to kind of talk a bit about, or maybe dwell a bit about this concept in futurism coming as cocooning. Now, with so much of uncertainty in the world, right, we all prefer to spend a lot of time at home because that's where a lot of our investments lie. That's what we invested in for a lifetime. Now, what happens if that very area that we take as to be safe isn't safe anymore, right? Now, what if an insurer could kind of give you the insights into, like, location-based, or maybe, I would say satellite-based accuracy of risks, leading you to kind of predict risks better that are there, that is going to affect your loved ones, right? That would be amazing, right? And that's the other market that we see for insurance going forward. And the last one, like I mentioned, is a combination of the volatile uncertainties that are crowding the market today, right? We call it business shield, right? Which is basically helping customers, I would say the small to medium enterprises understand what global risk is all about, simplify it for them in the terms of products. And there are wonderful companies like Descartes who are doing it globally, right? And that's the last fourth segment that, we see as going to be scope for insurers going forward. But that said, is the expectation of customers going to dwindle? Absolutely no, right? I think the amount of customers who moved from a traditional model to a digital model grew from 40% to 65%. And out of that, the people whom we surveyed, right, said that 75% of people would actually change their insurer based on the digital experience. Think about it. 75% of digital customers would change their insurance just basis the experience that an insurance company is giving them digitally, right? Case in point, on the screen, you could see that we had, when we began, two very traditional companies, right? State Farm and Progressive. Now, in terms of market share, they were running neck to neck when they began. As a point of comparison, claim settlement taking months, right? And then Progressive decides to partner with Cambridge Telematics, right? User-based insurance jumps to 50% of their portfolio, right? And then State Farm gets left behind. Again, all due respect to the business and just a point of view here, right? And then claim settlement dwindles from, I would say, weeks to days, right? And today, as we speak, I think, the whole access of references even crossed names. So we got people like, Tesla, Root, Lemonade, all of that dabbling in this space, right? So, point being that the digital, the digital curve, the digital point is going to just go up and up, right? It's going to influence customer expectations, it's going to influence customer sentiments, right? It's going to actually kind of live up to what customer 20 that I spoke about is going to be, right? It's going to live up to that expectation, right? And it's only kind of the sign of happier times for all of us. Again, another example, John Hancock, right? Partnering with Verily in Google, an alphabet company, right? For diabetes, right? So what they've done is to effectively kind of harness the power of Verily using AI for diabetes and make diabetes a disease not to be frowned upon, but to be like a lifestyle coach for people with the ailment, right? And how does a company like John Hancock integrate people with this challenge into its own ecosystem, right? So make it more, and this is actually I would say, the acme of an insurer's expectation. How do I, as an ecosystem provider, right, play the role of healthcare and a wellness being to my customer? I would love an insurance company who does that, personally speaking, right? Another example, again, we all have aged parents at home, right? Ping An in China, right? They've gone beyond just providing, routine healthcare. They're truly a data company today, Ping An, right? And the same can be said of Tesla as well. Tesla doesn't say that they are a car company, they say they're a data company. That's the amount of data they control today. So Ping An, a network of, professionals for senior care, right? Professionals for diagnostics, medical ailments, so on and so forth. So there's a whole new ecosystem that Ping An have created, basis data, basis understanding the customer better. And yeah, and again, the example of how an ecosystem can actually be a partner to one's loved ones, right? To kind of help them live better lives, right? So, again, reiterating what I began with, right? As we step into 2030, the next 5 years, we're going to see the insurance company move or morph from being a financial airbag, again, a financial airbag to a digital co-pilot. Now think about it. An airbag kind of gives us visions of a crash happening, head in the steering wheel, all kind of ghastly situations. We don't want to go there, right? We want to have a digital co-pilot, a pilot who kind of helps us navigate turbulent times, right? Helps us fly smooth and steady through uncertain times and kind of help us live better. And that's where we see where the insurer of the future is going. Now, I want to stress upon this. I spoke about the emerging areas, cyber and climate. Now, a few data points. I think I had a data point in climate when I came in here, right? I think in 2025, the amount of losses owing to climate change was $160 billion, right? I think one of the gentlemen on stage had a data point in cyber as well, right? So, and yes, I think I was privy to, Nikesh Arora talking about the impact of cyber and security and of course, insurance, and another speech of his, right? But then the point is, we see these as being two very clear emergent sectors for insurance to place their bets upon, right? And I think this is, again, coupled with the fact that we're living in very uncertain times. We're living in the world of paranoia, right? We kind of need somebody to kind of help us simplify this risk better. And nothing could be better than, an insurer delving into these kind of segments to be addressed. Now, what helps them get there, right? It's very clear. So we are talking tech here today, right? So what helps them get there is, so we spoke about pricing tech, agentic AI. Now we're seeing a burgeoning amount of data driven by satellites, right? That tools like quantum computing, and we're seeing the advent of digital twins as well. Now, I had the privilege of working with a manufacturing company, and then I think we spoke about digital twins in that context, but I see today insurers world over, right, speaking increasingly about digital twins adapted to their model, right? And this is primarily to do with the example that I gave of home safe home, right? How do I understand real estate better? How do I kind of understand, satellite imagery? How do I make sense of all that geospatial data coming in, right? And that gives rise to, so each of these four quadrants, right, that I spoke about, gives rise to this amazingly exponential growth in ecosystems coming. Like I mentioned, right, insurers can't do this or can't tread this curve alone. They need to have ecosystems and partnerships, right? And we can see a whole amount of names in there. I can say that we as NTT DATA, we work about 7 or 8 names in there, right? And I think our conversations with the clients have only grown more meaningful, more potent, right? Courtesy these partnerships and courtesy their innovative business models. So the real word out here is that partnerships and ecosystems are here to stay, right? And you can't track this ride alone, right? So, two very quick examples. I spoke about Descartes, amazing work in the climate change industry, right? And if you can see, right, I think they're making excellent use of weather history, satellite data to kind of address the space of, climate risk in a more potent fashion. The second we have is another company that we work with, ZSTI, right? I think who kind of makes sense about property and, the placement of the properties and so forth to kind of give you that amount of optics into what home business is all about. So these two companies we see are fundamentally changing the dynamics of how climate risk and, property risk and all evaluated and being sensed. And it's only our wish and it's only our, our heartfelt desire that we see a lot of companies like this that we could talk to and partner with. And that brings me to the end of my presentation. So I hope it's been an insightful one. Thank you all for your time and attention. Jai Hind. Happy to take questions. Oh, by the way, before I forget, I'm flanked by my wonderful team, Shweta, Swapnil, and do give us a visit around booth 3 here. We're all here to kind of help you and have conversations with you. Any questions? Otherwise, I go grab my coffee. Nope. I didn't go on time. Thank you. That's a lovely compliment from a lovely lady. Thank you so much.
I think very good on presentation as well, very well articulated. That's why, there was no question. I think mostly questions were answered. Can we have a huge round of applause? I will say that a very well structured presentation. Thank you for being so informative. At the same time, I'll request Mr. 𝐂𝐨𝐬𝐲𝐬𝐿 Saxena, Chief Distribution Officer, Bank Assurance, Aditya Birla Sun Life Insurance, to please join us on stage to felicitate Krish Menon. Can we have a huge round of applause, everyone? I'll request you both to please join us on the center stage. Thank you, Mr. Menon, for a very insightful presentation. Everyone, come on. I know it's a time for one more cup of a tea and a coffee, but still, let's maintain the energy and enthusiasm.